Welcome to the EcoSend podcast. Be inspired, educated, and entertained by the world's most ambitious leaders, putting climate at the top of their agenda. Welcome back for an extra special episode of the EcoSend podcast. Today, we're back with our second in-person wrap-up episode of the show. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Kresse. I'm the Customer Success Lead here at EcoSend. Today in the hot seat, or the hot sofa, I'm delighted to welcome our host, James Gill, CEO at EcoSend, to talk us through his learnings from running both the EcoSend podcast and from running EcoSend itself. Really happy to have you here, James, to bring season 6 to a close and for a bit of a chance to reflect on guests, stories, and all the lessons we've learned from the past season. We've had another really great lineup of guests, I think, this series, ranging from ethical email consultants, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, sustainable advertising consultants, and even an episode about handbags made out of fire hoses. So really looking forward to cracking this episode with you, James, and getting your thoughts. But first, how are you doing today?
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Kresse. Thank you so much for organising this. I'm always amazed at how quickly a series goes round, and series 6, it's quite something. Yeah, so looking forward to unpacking it all. There's been so much from this series.
Let's dive in. So one thing I think I've noticed a lot from this series is we've welcomed a lot of experts who are really passionately pursuing ethical or sustainable initiatives, but within industries that you wouldn't normally associate with as sustainable. Thinking in particular Ollie Dean from The Good Net, episode 9, who talked to us about how advertising can drive sustainability forwards. I think when you mention the word advertising, to most people, you'd think of Don Draper or spammy Facebook ads, not something you traditionally associate with holistically minded business. But their work is really vital to transforming these more controversial industries for the future. I know you and we attend quite a few events in the sustainability calendar, and quite often it's all the same faces, the same people. We're still not quite reaching into that general business sort of community conscious. And at the end of the day, we can't drive sustainability forward just with a small minority. So my question is, what do you think can be done to help seed and nurture sustainability or ethical business initiatives within the more controversial industries?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kresse. And I think, there's been multiple episodes in this series where we've been tucking into businesses that, some of them have been very similar to ours. I think Ollie's business is a lot of parallels there to what we're doing at EcoSend, and Yuval obviously in the email space herself, through to, as you said, people turning fire hoses into handbags. And I think this whole concept of sustainability in business is still, while we've made tremendous progress, it is still just getting started, clearly. And I think the idea of how in some of these more challenging industries to get more people talking about it and thinking about it and making positive change, I think we've found ourselves, and I think Ollie shared a lot of this himself, and in fact some of the other guests as well. It's often trying to think about the hardest person to convince, the person who's most staunchly against anything climate related. We are not all leaders in the climate space, and not everyone cares about the climate and the planet. I know that might be hard to believe on a podcast where we're talking about where these worlds collide. But I think the climate piece is not on people's minds for very good reasons. People have got very clear, actionable targets to hit and goals to see through, and when push comes to shove, I think we've all in our personal lives made decisions that maybe we sometimes do compromise on climate and sustainability. I think one of the things we've learned and seemed to resonate with Ollie as well was that it's finding ways where there's mutual alignment and benefit there, in that it doesn't have to be a sacrifice. Doing something about climate does not have to mean sacrificing profit or growth necessarily. Sometimes it does, but I think the best businesses and the businesses that are excelling and succeeding and that have a very bright future are making positive change for the planet and the world but they're not doing that at a compromise. If anything, it's part of their whole ethos and the reason they exist and how they are helping you succeed on business terms as well. I think that's pretty exciting.
It's a really good point. And I think Ollie himself actually made the point, or had the statistic, that ethically minded ads, or ads that score higher on the sort of ethical index, outperformed standard ads, at least in this survey, by about 14%. So there definitely is that business initiative.
How can you argue with that? Yeah. How can you argue with that?
The stats don't lie, as they say. So yeah, it's definitely, I think there's a need to promote that point, that there's a real business incentive to this. It's not a sacrifice to choose the sustainability angle or the ethical business initiative. It's actually the right decision for you as a business.
Totally. I think, when we look at that for ourselves at EcoSend and we talk to customers, there's often people on the team that care deeply and passionately about the planet, but there are also people that have very clear goals in terms of when it comes to email, open rates, click-through rates, absolutely, ultimate revenue generated. If we're not satisfying their needs, then there's only so much impact we can make ourselves on the climate front. So ensuring those are aligned and considered, and if anything, improved by the sustainability work, I think those are just very exciting businesses to be part of. Yeah,
I love that. I think for me, my favorite episode of this season was with Kresse Wesling of Elvis and Kresse, and her story about transforming these disused fire hoses into handbags, while also donating thousands of pounds to the London Fire Brigade charity and restoring a degraded farm. So, when you hear stories like this, I think it really opens your mind to the human potential for positive change. And yet, examples like Elvis and Kresse remain very much anomalies. So, what do you think can be done to encourage business leaders and perhaps, especially the future generation of leaders, to follow the Elvis and Kresse examples of holistic business rather than just continue this current narrative of profit at all costs?
Yeah, the episode with Kresse was really inspiring, I think. And, if anyone watching hasn't seen that or listened to that yet,
episode 4.
Episode 4, there we
Just
go.
checked.
Better memory than me, Chris. Looking at a business that is not only selling a sustainable product or, turning new life into a previously a product that would have gone to landfill into something that can have a wonderful life ahead of it, but also to think about their business practices from the ground up. Like, we're not just selling the right thing and making the right thing, but we're thinking about where we're located, the culture within the team, probably even whatever the desks are made of, that level of care. I think that's something that, I know a lot of businesses strive towards. It's such a wonderful thing to try and think not only in what you sell, but what you do in your personal life, what you do in your business life, how these all kind of ultimately feed up into truly living good values and being a great citizen of planet Earth. I look at that work that Kresse's done and her team have done, and I am truly inspired. And I think it's something I look at. I think most people can view that as an aspiration, or many people can view it as an aspiration. I know I do. In terms of looking at it, though, of practically moving to that approach, I think you just have to take it one step at a time. It's like with any significant change in a business, like if you do something overnight, then hey, there's a lot of risk in that. But I think if you look at, how do we consider the workspace we're in? How do you consider how your team get to work? How do you consider your suppliers? All of these things that we've talked about in the past, for instance, in the part of the B Corp movement as well, it's like encouraging you to look at those things. And I think most businesses, in the short term, are probably not going to get to that level of incredible work that Kresse has done. But can you take steps towards that today? Can you literally today take some steps towards that? And I'm sure most of us, if we reflect and look deep enough, probably yes. And that's how that journey starts and continues.
I love that. We don't all have to jump on a degraded farm and
not overnight.
Overnight and change everything. But we can all make small steps in the immediate environment we all have. Yeah, definitely. I think the power of personal brand has been also another big theme of this particular season. I'm thinking in particular of Yuval Ackerman, of Ethical Emails, Carlos Terrell, both very prolific on platforms like LinkedIn and seem to drive a lot of their business forward via their brand. But personal branding is a tricky one. And I think we all know business leaders who get it wrong.
Looking at me there, Chris.
Wink, wink. How do you think founders and entrepreneurs can strike that right balance of building a personal brand and posting regularly on social media platforms without falling into inauthenticity or becoming sort of slaves to the algorithm?
Yeah. Now, joking aside, I do think this is a topic on my mind a lot. I think what we're doing at EcoSend, we always have this conflict of whether we're doing too much or too little to share, what we're working on and our ethos and our values and our goals. I think perhaps many people running businesses, many people, if you're watching this, maybe wondering how much do I share and how much do I keep back. And I think there's a landscape that has shifted over the last handful of years, where it's increasingly encouraged to share more and to build a personal brand and personally share, but also to peel back the curtain on what's happening in your business. There's a lot of interest out there in terms of people's desire to learn what's going on inside this other business. What can I learn? And I think the authenticity piece absolutely comes up for me. I'm not very good at saying anything I don't truly believe in, and I think that's been something I've been very conscious of, and I think it stems from having. I think it honestly stems all the way back into like your personal values as a human, and getting clear on those, and that trickles down into the business you want to run and the position you're in and the role you're in, and I think there's no shortcut to those things. But I think, there's being cognizant of the industry and the market and trying to ensure you get attention, and ultimately, hopefully, what's the purpose of that attention? For us at EcoSend, it's to hopefully find more people who will ultimately switch to us and make some positive change in the world. I think as a personal branding exercise, it's just, if you're the only place where the authenticity is lost is if you start saying stuff you don't truly believe in. And if you start doing that, then that is a slippery slope. If you stay true to your values and believe what you're saying, then whether you're talking once a week or once a day, that's not the hard bit. It's making sure you're clear on what you truly value.
Absolutely. I think we've seen there's so much value in the SaaS community, in the build in public movement, and these kinds of initiatives where people are being open about everything, all aspects of their business, all the warts and all the good and all the bad, rather than just the sort of survivorship bias of the one person who happened to make it overnight and just having the glory story just from that. So I think we live in a time where authenticity, people are really craving authenticity. It's really so difficult to find it. And if you can use that maybe as your sort of guiding light, or that's as your North Star, then that will ensure that the content that you do post is of genuine value and of genuine interest to people.
I would totally agree. And I also think, and I don't think I used to view it this way, but I think one of the beautiful things about social media, maybe also about email, is it's not a one-way street. When you open up and are authentic and share, I don't ever do that myself, and I don't think we do as a business, on the assumption that we're just putting out a message and people should take it. We often share stuff where we want to have a conversation and we want to learn. And I think that's a hugely valuable piece for anyone building an organization, or, the topic of sustainability and learning about the climate. Like for us, that's been a big part of why this podcast even exists. It's about sharing what we're learning, the process of sharing what we're learning, helping us form our own understanding of those topics we're learning about. and then oftentimes sharing stuff that we've gotten wrong, but we don't know it's wrong yet, and we find out it's wrong by hearing feedback. And I think that two-way process, that dialogue, that iteration, like there's people who learn from that and use that to get better and incrementally improve over time, or there's people that don't view it that way. And I know what side I would rather be on.
No, I love that. I think that is the power of personal branding, where it becomes this interactive conversation between you and the audience. Whereas maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, you'd shout something out from the company LinkedIn page and there wouldn't be that interaction. And now it's much more focused on, you as a founder or entrepreneurs actually talking in public and talking with people, not just at people. It's much more, much more interactive, much more human. James, nearly the end of 2024, 2025 rather creeping around the corner. I think this time last year we were rounding off season 3 of the podcast, getting close to 5,000 trees planted. And now we're at the end of season 6. We've hit over 10,000 trees planted, which has been a real highlight for me, and I'm sure for you as well. But turning to 2025, what are you most excited for about the year to come?
Yeah, I think it has absolutely flown by. I'm still trying to piece together where 2024 has gone. It's not over yet, of course, but I know by the time this airs, it probably will be, or maybe it already has, and I hope it's good in the future. But I think the journey we've been on with EcoSend so far has been incredibly exciting. There's been a lot to figure out. Still, like, we only launched EcoSend really in March of last year, of 2023. So it's felt like a big journey we've been on, but also we've barely gotten started yet. And I think the various metrics we can look at, planting 10,000 trees, I think huge praise to Chris, you and the team, but also those wouldn't exist without people switching to us and using us and becoming customers and partners and all sorts of trusted people placing trust in us, which has been just so fantastic and really makes me proud of what we've done. I think there's so much to reflect on from the last year of which has been positive and exciting, and I think we all just feel really charged up about how we build on that and how we take that forward. I know when we posted where we shared about 10,000 trees the other day, a lot of people were like, what next? And it's like, well, you got to add another digit to that, right? You got to take it to 100,000. But I think we all know that a number is one thing, but it's like what that means and what that represents. It's like, we're not really trying to do this just to plant trees. Like, we are trying to have a positive impact on the planet, on the climate, on the planet we all share as humans, and that ultimately is an impact on other humans. And I think we're trying to put something really good into the world, and we all get a real drive from that and a real kick out of that. I also think we're working with just so many wonderful organizations and trying to help people. We're doing stuff on the climate, which I'm very proud of, but also the email piece. And, we are building software. That software ultimately impacts millions of people. When you think about our customers and their audiences, I just think we have so much opportunity ahead for influencing more people to think about the planet and make better decisions in their lives, and to help the organizations that we work with just communicate their values better and more effectively. So I think there's just so much opportunity ahead. Obviously, got a little break over Christmas, I hope, and then we'll be fresh to it in the new year with many exciting opportunities and challenges to come. So
I'm sure. And for my most important question, James, what are your plans for Christmas?
I will be at home. I will be cooking for too many family members, and I believe I'll have 3 dogs in my house. So
wow, 3 dogs and how many humans?
Unfortunately, more humans than that, Chris. Yeah.
James, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us today in the hot seat. And where can people find you?
Well, head to ecosend.io. that is our site. That's where we spend
Where we
most of
hang
our
out.
time. And yeah, just James at ecosend.io is my email. Please drop me a note there, on LinkedIn and the usual places. But yeah, you'll find me.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in for this special edition episode. We'll be back with season 7 of the EcoSend podcast with many more fantastic guests already lined up to share their wisdom and their stories about building better businesses and making the world a better place. So we look forward to seeing you there soon. Thank you again for your time, James.
Thanks, Chris. A pleasure. Cheers.